All right. This is nonprofit for IndieWeb.
What's the official start time? Is 4?
I think it's 3:55.
Oh, that was
I think it's
15
yes,
seconds
that's
ago.
correct.
We're down to 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
So right now, you want me to go shout?
Yeah.
Other people.
I'll just let's give some more people some chance to come in.
Yeah.
Much as I like Aaron, I think.
I don't think I've ever seen a Pearl 5 sticker on the back of a laptop.
Now you have. This sticker was I got it from the organization that runs the Mojolicious project, which is a web framework. I wanted to link to the sticker from my blog when I was writing about all the stickers on my laptop, and I could not find it for sale anywhere. It's on Sticker Mule.
You know, I'm one of the few people left, maybe like you, that still writes Pearl 5.
I write Pearl 5 too. I'm 46 years old.
Yeah, there's a lot of us.
And they're all hiding really well.
Well, it's not the new hotness, so you're not going to hear you're not necessarily going to hear a cited discussion about Perl for its own sake, but I like to think you'll hear about projects that like, oh yeah, and it's written in Perl. It's like, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I tend not to lead with like Perl because there's nothing more boring than like, hey, let's talk about my programming language.
On some level, they all become the same thing. You know?
Yeah, I talk about Perl as if it's I like to like, sometimes I say I use Python. And it's like Perl is a Python dialect. Sure, it's basically. It's a kind of Python. I write all kinds of Pythons. Any kind of, I write with various gems and snakes all day long.
Sometimes it might.
This is the nonprofit section.
This is the nonprofit. I'm going to give it another minute.
It looks like people are settling in the main room now.
Okay.
Oh, you have the God's view here.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and start talking then and seize the moment because I can talk for as long as necessary and people can wander in. This is a skill you learn when running frequent board meetings at a nonprofit is you start on time and people can show up. So who am I? I'm Jason McIntosh. Salient to this topic, I co-founded and currently serve as a director and the president of the Interactive Fiction Technology Foundation, which you can find online at iftechfoundation.org. This is I can actually bring that up and read to you our mission statement rather than trying to rattle it off from memory. About IFTF mission and goals, the Interactive Fiction Technology Foundation, IFTIF, helps ensure the ongoing maintenance, improvement, and preservation of the tools and services crucial to the creation and distribution of interactive fiction, as well as the development of new projects to foster the continued growth of this art form. Where did this come from? So in 2014, I took over the organization of the Interactive Fiction Competition, which is an annual online festival at ifconf.org. That's been running since the mid-1990s for encouraging people to write short works of interactive fiction. And just to rewind, does anyone not know what I mean when I say interactive fiction? I basically define it as a computer game that uses text as its main input and output. This includes like classic text adventure games, Zork, Hitchhiker's Guide et al., all the way through the decades to what people write now in things in that mode or more experimental ways, so long as it deals with text. So I took over IFConf in 2014. I spoke with a lawyer someone recommended to me specifically on the topic of copyright and the copyright status of entries. I told her about IFConf and she was horrified and said, why isn't this organized into a nonprofit already? So I did not organize into a nonprofit that year, but that stuck with me. And I started to notice that in the interactive fiction community, which, like I said, has been around online since the 90s, there's a lot of projects at the time that were, in some cases, being run by the same people after, in some cases, 20 years or so, and just sort of continuing to exist by fiat and sort of with a bus factor of one, if you will, that had a lot of community dependence on them, but we're just assumed that, well, this one guy, usually a guy, will just continue running this forever, and that's fine. And in other cases, such as the Twine project, which is an accessible IF creation tool, the person who ran it was very nervous about that project's longevity and wanted, to have this project outlive them, either in the sense of not necessarily of their own mortality, but in the sense of their own interest or time to continue using this. And so they were independently starting to look at what are some ways to organize more formally. So after a few years of running IFComp, I started getting a lot of people. So the competition has a prize program where you can just donate a prize, and these prizes go into a pool. At the end of the competition, they get distributed to the top placers. This is how it's worked for a long time. Once I started running it, because it had been around for about 20 years, and a lot of the people who had been there since the beginning were beginning to get older in the sense that they were, had been in business for a while and were successful and more wealthy, and wanted to give prizes of several $1,000s. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I don't want to have giant prizes for this. But the impression I was getting was they just wanted to give money to the general concept of interactive fiction, this art form they loved, and they didn't know where else to put it other than as prizes in this competition, because it was the only thing in the competition, in the community, that happened to have a handout. So they're like, can I just put a bunch of money in here? And I was like, can we talk about that? That, more than anything else, was what spurred me to think about creating mixing that with my conversations with the lawyer from a couple of years prior to that, really spurred me into starting to talk with some friends about the possibility of creating a nonprofit, which actually I have a sticker next to my Pearl sticker. I have an IFTIP sticker here, and I wish I had brought more, but so basically, long story short, we ended up forming a nonprofit, and we got, yes?
Just out of clarity, are you talking 501c3?
Yeah, we got 501c3,
Yes,
which
I did
is,
recall this.
that's the American code for a charitable,
Educational, generally.
yeah.
Is there an Etherpad set up?
There is an Etherpad set up. Did I just blow past that? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or maybe you didn't, and we just didn't know.
There is an Etherpad, and yeah.
What's the hashtag?
Thank you for asking. Is it nonprofit?
Nonprofit?
Yeah.
I can take notes.
Thank you very much.
Just the podium.
Oh, is that still?
It's a format. It's a 2x2 grid of 4 screens.
There you go.
Thanks.
But so yeah, IFTIF got 501c3 status surprisingly quickly. Actually, it was in the very recent past something that you had to apply for and then wait a long time to come around. I can't speak for right now, but at least as of early 2016, it was basically rubber stamped. Especially as you say, it's something that you can provably say it has an educational value, which is like this is a digital art form. Teachers like it, yay!
Educational, charitable, religious.
What was your example that you just did? Sorry, I'm just trying to get to the notes.
I'm sorry.
What was it? Was it a Pearl group that you did, or the nonprofit?
The nonprofit is the Interactive Fiction Technology Foundation per the sticker.
Oh, perfect. That's all.
Yeah,
You guys can
and,
keep talking.
yeah, it's iftechfoundation.org is the URL. So once you, this was part of the lawyer's advice from the beginning. She has a name, Heidi. She's still our legal counsel. becoming a charitable nonprofit opens a lot of doors that you don't necessarily have as a unorganized group, no matter how much passion and energy you have. First of all, and one thing that like e.g. IndieWeb has right now, so it's not the only way to do it. You do have a single point of entry for donations, but those donations become tax deductible for American citizens and for other entities that qualify for that.
Can I pause this for a minute?
Yes.
I think a lot of us, I would like to know more about who's here and why.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, I just went right into my spiel. So
I want to know who's here and why. And
thank you so much. Yes.
And I think a lot of us, based on that, I think many of us might know a lot of stuff about this already, and maybe we can jump farther in the discussion.
Thank you so much. Let's do that. Go ahead.
So I am obviously one of the co-founders of this event. Been doing this for the 8th one, and have a lot. I have some experience running other organizations, not specifically as a 501c3. I have operated LLCs. Small and usually small, or a few partners. I am interested in this discussion because I can see where the existing IndieWeb organization, as an organization, specifically about the mechanics of fundraising, has worked and not worked in different ways. And I would like more ideas on ways we can grow, maybe as a nonprofit, maybe not, benefits of doing either model. So I'll leave it at that, but that's fair.
I spent years as a member's board for the Los Angeles Macintosh Group, which was a user group back in the 90s with 5,000 members and a large budget. So that's where I learned everything I know about 501c3s. I've also helped out a few nonprofits, not-for-profits, groups that should have been 501c3s, but didn't realize they could have gotten a lot further if they jumped through the legal loops. And I'm just interested in infrastructure and how startup organizations turn into actual long-term functioning, useful support groups.
Yeah, longevity is a very interesting topic to me as well.
So I'm Johannes. I've been involved in a bunch of organizations like the technology space, particularly related to identity. Most notable one, I was one of the founding directors of the OpenID Foundation, which is still around and takes the big bucks. I'm also an entrepreneur in this space, and I would like the IndieWeb to evolve where more commercially available products and services work out of the box. So I built some technology related to this. There's other people looking at that. I happen to believe that for this to work, we have to organize the community beyond having just a capitalist competition or something go on here. In order to keep it decentralized and to keep it user controlled and so on and so forth. How to do that, I don't know. The best answer so far that I come up in my own mind is may not be a nonprofit or a foundation as it has been traditionally done in technology, but a co-op. So my take on that.
My name is Greg. I'm a board member of a few different 501(c)(3)s. And I'm torn because at the same time I'm applying for large federal grants and I can't without, like right now I'm just sending out to private developers that are in the community because there's no centralized, so if there was a 501(c), I could contract with that 501(c). And these are $1 million grants, like for, that could bring in a lot of money. So that would be a nice infrastructure, but at the same time, I have volunteered in many open source communities that have boards and it's just like, it sucks. I come here.
No, I don't disagree.
Yeah, I come here because there are no boards and bosses, and I really mean that. Like, I'm done with open source. If there's like a hierarchical structure of boards, it sucks. But at the same time, we have to have it. So it's like I don't know what to do.
Necessary.
But I think that because I'm in ed tech, and I own a company in ed tech, so I know like the long sales cycles and the troubles. I am very interested in the idea of the co-op model. And the We Are Open Co-op is a pretty big Slack group. Discourse group. They're also, so I don't know if that's the right option or it's a co-op. It doesn't have to be everybody. There could be 5 people in a room that just make a co-op and, profit sharing and things of that nature. So both of those intrigue me, but yeah.
I'm going to say something about this topic, so you might want to.
Let's finish the introductions, but I'm very curious about returning to that too.
I'm Forrest Hazy Lori. I am the CEO, Managing Director of Tech Praxis SPC. SPC is a Washington State designation for social purpose corporation. Washington, plenty of you know about that. New York, California, Washington have new forms of corporations. Public benefit.
B Corp idea?
B Corp is not a form of corporation. It is a privately maintained form of validation of corporate behavior. Yes, but there's no state.
Oh, it's not a.
There's never a state
but this is an
certification.
actual.
Social purpose corporations are located as a corporate form in at least 5 states. As California moved the flexible benefit corporation to social purpose corporation last year. There are several social purpose corporations in Washington State. One of them, Puri.sm, moved from San Francisco to Seattle specifically because of the advantage of Washington State's social purpose corporation law. And I started Tech Praxis. If you look on our website, techpraxis.io, it's a tiny placeholder website because we're up to a lot. But it says we focus on working with individuals, businesses, and communities to match the vast capabilities of today's information technologies, collaboratively working with our clients and members to pick the optimal solution so that they are empowered and uplifted to do the work they need to accomplish their mission in today's rapidly changing and chaotic world. And one of the things we do as our core purpose is we build cooperatives in the Pacific Northwest, specifically in information technology, worker communities. My mother is a Basque American, and her ancestors migrated to Southeast Oregon 100 years ago. We made our own treaties with the Shoshone, ignoring the federal government, and we're a very powerful people, right? And so you might know that in the Basque Country, our cousins, have one of the world's largest cooperative economies, the Mons Vauban, it's often referred to, with about 380,000 people working in it. And amongst cooperatives in the world, the Mons Vauban cooperatives are one of the biggest examples of successful. We have thousands of different cooperatives. We have banks, we have infrastructure, we have insurance, we have international trade. So what I'm up to is I don't like nonprofits anymore. I've worked in them a lot. I've been on the board of several. I'm also the founder of the Cascadia Computing and Communications Cooperative, which is a Washington State cooperative and also instantiated in British Columbia. And with that institution, which started in January of this year, we're working to build on the Quebec model, a multi-stakeholder cooperative. And what that means is, so cooperatives traditionally focus on one class, workers or consumers or producers. In Quebec and some other places, it was created in the recent past, the idea that different classes of economic actors might need to negotiate their relationship, and they might not have the same relationship, and there might be so much discontinuity. You need an organizational format to allow them to broker their relationship and yet maintain benefits relative to the outside society in terms of the members and the institution, and also separating economic power and differentiating parts of that from voting. So I'm going to finish in a second.
Quick question, just to really understand what you say when you say multi-stakeholder. So in a tech-related thing, it could be the vendors and the users being part of the same co-op. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Just to understand it.
I'll find the discourse.
And we're also building a 3,200 node in the Pacific Northwest to help the Northwest survive the Cascadia earthquake that is going to come in the next 500 years, because our communications computing infrastructure will be impacted by that event. And so why is this important? I don't like the distributional issues that happen with nonprofits. And I don't like the professionalization that sometimes happens when they get big. Small, sometimes they're very useful, medium-sized. And there's a lot of positive attributes. What I'm about is building cooperatives for several reasons. Computer security, user support, right? Customer, and client and member and neighborhood, connection and reality, right? And also equity, right? Funding the products that we need and services we need. So anyway, many cooperatives are nonprofits. And what I'm going to advocate is that in this community that, I don't think this is a forking of the topic at all, right? At all. I think that, it's actually very relevant. These two gentlemen indicated support of it. And the format of what nonprofits are, because all nonprofits are corporations, all of them, right? And corporate law organizes their behavior and their responsibilities, right? And so how are nonprofits organized? One way they can organize is as a cooperative. So anyway, I'll pass the baton.
So because this is the IndieWeb nonprofit session, I want to give a little history on what we've done, just so there's some context from that, and then we can build from there. Oh, and also Fiona's participating remotely, so she's typing notes into our Etherpad. We started, we are not an official organization in any form. We are just a name and a website, and people self-organize everything. Starting in 2011, so I organized the Portland event. I've been the organizer of the Portland one. I've helped organize a couple of the other US ones. There are separate organizers for the Germany ones. Every event is organized, is run through the host's own, like money for the event is all run through the host's own mechanism, whatever that might be. In the past, that means I have either done it through a personal LLC, either a joint LLC or my own. In Germany, they run it through a business that is hosting other events, so it makes sense for that. We have taken donations, obviously, sponsorship, not donations. We usually have some amount of corporate sponsorship, or from a foundation. That is always obviously taxable income for myself, and so I just make sure that I am spending all the money we're using so that I don't pay tax on it, because we're not trying to make money off of this. We're trying to run an event. And it's been working fine. I haven't ever heard any pushback on the fact that we're not a nonprofit in terms of people giving us money. That's never been a thing, probably because we're not going after very large grants. We're going after corporate sponsorship. So it's a marketing expense for them. Yeah. So it's tax deductible anyway for them. So that hasn't been a problem in terms of that. The things that I feel like we could benefit from some sort of more formal organization are going after larger grants, for one. There's been some talk of like funds for paying people to work on projects. I don't know how well that would actually play out anyway, like regardless if like even if we could do it.
But it's been talked about.
It's been talked about, of like, you know, bug bounties or just contract work of like, we need to pay a designer to design a logo for this thing. Like that's totally a thing that is a pretty normal thing to do, right? So that would be one thing that we don't really have a good way to do right now, where we can benefit from that. Things I am concerned about forming any sort of organization is it adds a lot of overhead, no matter what form that organization takes. I currently am running this as a single member LLC because that is the least amount of overhead possible. It is one extra tax return I file, and it's not even a full tax return. It's like,
and that's just so you have an insurance certificate, or
no, I don't have. We usually were at a venue that is either the company's office and it just falls under theirs, or in this case, it's sometimes syndicate running the facing the insurance for the event. So yeah, I want to avoid overhead because that's just not fun work. It's not the point of this. So a nonprofit has quite a lot of overhead. Like 501c3 has quite a lot of overhead. A multi-member LLC has less, but still some. A actual corporation, again, like a C Corp would have quite a lot of overhead.
If I can ask, like, what's the nature of the overhead you're hearing, for example?
The minutes you have to file, you have
board meetings.
It's a lot of work.
Recruiting board members who can't be the same people as the owners. Getting FaceTime with all the board for the meetings, and then tax returns become more complicated because now you actually have a real corporation that's filing taxes, and the maintenance of that company and entity over time. The other insurance would need insurance for sure. The other big fear I have is around the longevity of it. The main thing I want to avoid is I want to avoid the lifetime of the IndieWeb community being tied to the lifetime of any sort of entity. So if there's anything ever named IndieWeb and it's an entity, whether or not it's nonprofit, at some point that entity will probably shut down, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. I don't want that to take down the IndieWeb community as well. So one way
I have a
around,
suggestion I want to put into this discussion stack about that.
yeah, so one way around that I've seen is to have a separately named thing that is essentially created to support the IndieWeb community. And that can be run separately, and if that goes away, it's fine.
That's something
And
like
like
what,
Fiona was mentioning, Ruby Together is an example of that working well.
what is Ruby Together?
It is a nonprofit entity formed to support Ruby projects. It
Yeah.
is not Ruby Foundation. It is not part of the language. It's not officially tied to them.
So this is kind of the idea that I was wondering and thought maybe it might be possible for us to do. Is to, well, I want there to be process. I don't want to just jump and talk, but.
But also, that's what IFTIF does for Twine. So Twine is a crucial technology in the interactive fiction world. IFTIF has a standing program for Twine support, which is chaired by the lead of the Twine project, but it does not control the Twine project, which is a GPL free and open source project. So it's doing its own thing in open source land. But the IFTIF's Twine program helps support its community and gives it additional resources. So for example, it holds the trademark for Twine. So it's basically, among other things, it's like a legal resource box that the Twine project can use. And IFTIF sort of acts like a sort of holding company for.
So what I heard is that different people have different ideas of what the problems they want to solve. And so this is where I wrote down what I heard. There was something related to events, could facilitate events somehow, maybe not that important. Tech development, could fund tech development. There could be helping with vendor customer collaboration of some kind, which was this whole idea about a co-op, and then could go after larger grants and fund projects like the logo. Was there some other things that we had in there?
Yeah, I mentioned several things. For instance, I mentioned the idea of equity and democracy and participation.
Okay, so
That's not necessarily
I mentioned
problems
this one
you
of
solve.
collaboration
Yeah.
governance.
Sometimes they are. Yeah.
Okay.
There can be solutions.
I mean, I guess that feels like either part of the development question of like, if you're building a thing, what is the
Those are the
ownership of it?
solutions to a problem.
Yeah, the question that I'm wondering about is how do different organizations, different size and scale and ability contribute together, and especially contributing money, time, contributions, different things.
But
how that
contributing to do what is the question we're answering right now.
to
So either
build.
contributing to run events, contributing, like collaborating on development.
What is the problem we're
So
trying to
last-
solve?
yeah.
Right, to do these things.
So
Other
are there any
things?
more of these things? I can't think of any.
Those look like the use cases.
There's
Yeah.
other things like just simple ownership. I mean, who owns the term IndieWeb?
That's what
if
I'm talking
anybody?
about. Equity.
It's in the public domain.
Is it?
Yeah, everything that's
Yeah,
on
everything on the
the
wiki is public.
everything's public domain.
That doesn't mean that there is
That
that
term itself
No, it's got a CC license, a Creative Commons
CC
public
zero,
domain
yeah.
license.
on the word.
Okay, that's a copyright thing.
That's
not
a
trademark.
copyright. That's not a trademark.
I think it's the image.
They're different.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of comes down to like who's IndieWeb's legal counsel right now.
Right,
It
Because
is
the
not an
copyright-
organization. There is no.
right. So somebody could come along,
So
Facebook could come along next week
legal
and
protection.
trademark it. And
Well,
you
no.
can-
No, they have a lot of
They can't,
prior
because
art.
There's so much prior art on it, they would be able
As
to,
if
but they
that
could.
stops the US trademark office from doing anything.
Oh,
these
it
days.
It does, with
It does,
just having the
yeah.
digital badges, there was 4 patents filed for badging.
I'm just saying, they give away so much trademark to so much.
I spent $10,000 fighting over a capital letter. Trust me, I know. Just which letter in my logo is capitalized.
Preaching to the
We've
choir.
got a stack of issues here. Why don't we deal with them?
This is one of the deals
Yeah.
that, the reasons for doing it is so that you can do things like trademark it
Yeah.
proactively. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah.
So let's look at which ones are the serious ones and which ones are not the serious ones? It seems like
Serious.
as in,
They're all
for example,
serious.
say events is not really a problem.
I would say we are able to run events pretty successfully under the current model, and I don't know how much more benefit we would get by running it through a separate organization.
Okay.
We might have
We take your word at it because you've been doing it. So tech development, there's a bunch of questions around it. If somebody was willing to spend a large amount of money to fund some IndieWeb foundational technology development, like improving libraries or doing better
But
testing
then-
or something,
As you say.
does such a person exist?
They do.
Will we have the ability to
There's
actually find someone to
corporations
do
who
that?
donate money to a
I
nonprofit.
personally know
So this is
several.
real?
Yeah.
This
I
is-
think so, yeah.
So this is, okay, so then we get, I'm going to.
And
Give this 2 pluses here.
if
Because it's
someone,
more important than this one.
if someone
There's
knows
several million
companies-
dollars out there waiting,
Yeah.
and our lack of organization is the reason they're waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you see those millions of dollars?
I live in one of the richest cities in the world now, man. And I go and I drink beers in Belltown, with, men and women who have earned millions and millions of dollars in a recent period of time. And a lot of them are young, and a lot of them want to give money, and they want to give it now. They want to support this movement. Damn
Okay.
right.
Fair enough.
Not to mention Google and its affiliates.
Yeah.
There are groups that
So-
will throw money.
Yeah, absolutely. Save it on wall.
Mozilla
Yeah.
is actually doing like a $2 million fund or something for projects.
Open
like
source
this.
projects, we can't apply for that.
We could raise
I
millions
tried, I
of
looked
dollars
into
quickly,
it.
is what I'm
Yes.
trying to say.
If we had the foundation.
And that would change a
This relates
lot.
to the larger grants down here, right? So specifically go
Yeah.
after that. So that this is the same category as this unit?
For almost any grant. But-
I'm trying to prioritize. So what is the
Yeah.
problem you're trying to solve here?
There's like, right now, I'm applying for a $1.4 million federal grant.
Okay.
I have to go with a private entity who, as a contractor, and there's gonna be $100,000 for 4 years for development work in that grant.
Right.
That's how much stupid money gets eaten up by universities, but that's a lot, I mean, that could help out, that's a decent salary for somebody.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, but maybe that is right. Maybe I should be going with just a member in the community that is a developer. Maybe it is better to go with whatever the IndieWebTogether.org
So
is.
because, if there's an organization, then all of a sudden you have a secondary fight as to how does the
Well, trust
organization
me,
distribute
soft money also hurts nonprofits. Like I've seen, because then,
Exactly.
federal grant money is different than like
Yeah. Federal
corporate
is
grant money
separate.
because that comes with like, well, you got to stay on our message. Like this grant is to support, and federal grant money is different than like getting a grant from the Ford Foundation.
Yep.
All grant money comes with strings.
Yep.
The strings are just different.
So if you look at the two
Different strengths.
remaining
Yeah.
ones here, how imminent or how important is some vendor customer collaboration, governance, equity, whatever we call it?
I feel like that follows after there is a project that can be
Okay,
used,
so
right?
this will be.
So I think it will be a-
important, but later.
Will be important, but later, yeah.
What about trademark and other legal things?
Sure, I never thought about that.
I've definitely thought about the trademarking the term IndieWeb,
You know,
but
what
it's,
happens if
So maybe-
somebody
But we had that case with
Eastern
whatever
Europe,
his name was in the UK. Forgot what his name is. Which who first wanted to do a cell phone, and then it wasn't a cell phone, and then
Indie.
yeah. You know what I'm talking about? I
Yes.
forgot his name.
The reason that I came to this group today, this particular group, was because I hope to meet folks as yourselves. And because, the timeline of discussion about the amount of money and the amount of contribution people who have a whole hell of a lot of it in my city is reached a hyper pitch. And I represent not only my own self and my 6 employee members, in my own little cooperative company, and the other company that's separate where I maintain majority control to try to keep things efficient and safe. I understand a lot of these kind of issues. And the 2 nonprofits I'm on the board of is because what happens when $10 million rolls in from 16 different groups of people? And, we need to navigate and negotiate and figure out, how to keep the money coming in independent from people's representation and membership. And how do we have equity means, you and I and you and I and I and I all have equal stake together in the thing. So cooperative is, I'm talking about 2 different things at the same, maybe, you know what I mean? The economic institution, but I'm also talking about the issue of our relationship. in terms of everybody in that group at the table. And sorry, I just wanted to clarify something. I thought that wasn't clear.
So what I think we're saying here is that, yes, there are some problems that would be solved by having some organizational entity, and specifically they relate to money.
Agreed.
And funding development, okay? There are different organizational structures we could find here. I think there's a strong case being made that it should be a cooperative kind of structure rather than, at least that's my take on it. Other people would disagree.
Can
More
a
of a
co-op
cooperative,
apply for these grants?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
right?
I mean, I'm just wondering about, so much of IndieWeb to me is about the end person doing this. And I think of co-op as corporations or organizations coming together to cooperate and not individuals.
So for instance, you could have a nonprofit that specializes in applying for grants. You could have a single member LLC that did exactly what you do.
Right.
You could have a social purpose corporation, right? And the cooperative could be just like in Washington State, we have the Washington State Educational Information Processing Cooperative with 287 members, right? Covering every single school district in the state with a $189 million budget, And my mother, served on the board of Oregon's version of that.
I got some seller.
So, a good friend of mine, started that organization's Reboot in 2006. That organization exists because you have tiny school districts, giant school districts, foundations, corporations, governments, they need to negotiate somehow. And so the cooperative is how they negotiate their governance, their relationship. I'm trying to advocate that we have some kind of surface. Maybe it's a subsequent step, as you said. I don't know, But I think we might need a little bit of different functions. So,
I tend to personally believe that the traditional ways of governing this kind of thing do not quite apply for something that is supposed to be user-driven and decentralized.
Yeah.
And so if there was a mechanism basically by having all sorts of membership categories, from the casual person who just wants to, spend $20 to support something to get a sticker, all the way to somebody who actually runs a company that is betting, the business on doing something related to this one, and have a mechanism by which these conflicts can be resolved, then I cannot think of doing this any other way than with a multi-stakeholder co-op. That's
exactly the right term. Right.
Yeah.
But I want to say something else in that, if Jason, if you feel like, maybe something that you wanted to help kind of, present or shape, is run over by the cooperative data, let's not necessarily have that in reality. Like what I'm saying is there's room and there might be a very urgent need for, 1 + 1 + 1. You know what I mean? Like we're not talking about thousands of little groups here. We're talking about, there might need to be, you know what I mean? Like you stated a few minutes ago, it's probably in the notes that, I'm going to continue to do because I think it's, a certain amount of authority there, right? Fine, and so, like I said, if we're, I think everybody at this table is involved in, or, is involved in management and coordination of significant parts of this effort. I know I am, I know you are, I know you are, I know you, a company or an organization, we're not just like putting up our own websites. Anyway, sorry. So we might need more than one thing, is what I'm trying to say.
Be, for example, I'm making this up, it might be that we end up with a foundation that is the technology infrastructure grant funding foundation, okay? And that's the entity that basically takes grant money and funds developers. And you might end up with an event management corporation. But all of that together gets sort of hat-herded in one overarching cooperative. Does that sound like a scheme that might actually...
The more organizations you have, the more overhead you have.
True.
But there could be his own LLC for the event. And
right.
His separate cooperative of 5 developers working on
Google employees each want to give $25,000 to something, right? And my brother in Eugene and my mother, and my grandmother, and your cousin, and 3 people, at, Corvo, and you know what I mean? Like, we live in one of the most rich places in terms of the tech industry in the world. We could raise a hell of a lot of money quickly.
And a lot of these companies, if you're donating to 501c3, will match.
Totally.
So we need a lot of money.
So
I mean,
we don't know,
here's an
but
example.
people want to support things.
People want to support things.
And
an
matching
example
funds
of
found money.
example of successfully raising money for development work is Micro.blog.
Yeah.
Ran a Kickstarter, raised $80,000, and did a thing with it and is running it. I'm sure he would benefit from another $80,000 because he's able to hire Gene, but maybe they can do a little more faster if they had a little more.
And they could be a co-op member, right?
Yeah.
His corporation would be a
How should we
member,
go forward with
his
your,
nonprofit.
how should we all, where should we go next?
Yes, that's actually a question. I think we have 10 minutes left.
And call it next steps.
Citizens.
Who wants to do next steps? As in, put some time in, actually?
I mean,
I'm committed.
I'm done.
I'm obviously.
I do a lot.
I think
I'm committed to
you need
this.
to have conversations with other people, like, is
Yeah.
the co-op person.
There are a lot of stakeholders in this discussion.
There's a lot of stakeholders, and there are people in the organization that don't want a nonprofit at all. They
Yeah.
want to keep
Oh,
it
yeah.
in this kind, so we have to respect that perspective. That's
You've been writing most of the notes, right?
for today.
Yes,
Yeah.
for this one. Could
Yeah.
you write this in a way that we can point people to it and say, would you like to join this effort?
It will be on the wiki, all these notes.
Right, but rather than just a random transcript of
He's
what people
asking a
said,
specific,
something that people.
Yeah, a call to
understand.
action. I will finish with a call to action.
Sure.
Everything I do finishes with a call
Okay,
to
okay.
action.
See that? Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, that was very,
Oh,
very
oh,
helpful.
okay.
Does anybody help
No,
with
no,
the next
I
step?
have a shtick. I do this in every meeting.
Thank
It's just I listen to
That's
every
a good
session and I
point.
write it down.
you very much. So yeah, Aaron, do you want to guide, or Jason, or somebody want to guide us the next few minutes and help us? What are next steps? What does that mean for us?
I think figuring out what efforts would benefit from money, first of all, so that we know like what this theoretical entity is funding, and coming up with a process for figuring out how to find those, because I know there's some people in the community who are building things who would love to be able to build them faster if they didn't have to have another job, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if they could get paid a normal amount to work on something that they want to work on, then maybe they wouldn't have to have it.
And we have a population in the United States and Canada that is getting older, in a chunk of it. And we have people, I was just for 2 days with my, friend's mother, she's, 81, and she has 190,000 acres of land. Holy Jesus, right? And I'm like, oh my God, we could have the permaculture people over here and the open source coders over here. But I'm saying there are a lot of people who are getting older and wish to give resources, right? And a chunk of them are allied with our values. So that's some organizational framework needs to take a strategic look at who are we, what are we doing, and what is money for?
There are developers who will happily prioritize whatever will pay their mortgage.
Yeah.
And if we can help pay their mortgage, our goals become their priority.
So I do also want to reinforce that I don't think that necessarily calling an organization IndieWeb is the right way to do it.
I don't believe that is appropriate at all.
Yeah.
I'm not into that.
But forming tangentially related things that are created to support the IndieWeb goals is absolutely appropriate. And also, like, anybody can do that. That also means that, like, it doesn't have to rely on me, for example. Right? So, like, nobody needs my permission to do that. Anybody can just do that.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Well, that's
like,
kind of what worries me about this, is that anybody who turns out to be a complete jerk can do this, and then all of a sudden you're.
Right. Yeah, I didn't realize. I was just reading on Creative Commons. They're like, do not try to Creative Commons license on your trademark. That will not work.
Right.
They actually put that right on the website.
Copyright,
Actually,
trademark.
speaking of
are very
jerk,
different
I think I
things.
just noticed that I missed my own session.
I would think somebody
I was
would
off
come
by, I
looking
think my
for you.
schedule was off by an hour.
What was your session?
Too late.
No, but what was it? Just had to
What
speak.
was
I
it?
wanted help to install these various readers. I think.
Oh, the Microsoft's going on right
Was
now?
that the one that was going outside?
I don't know.
Oh.
I would think they'd come looking
That's
for
okay.
you.
This is more important.
Is this one over though?
Yeah.
we have a
Yeah.
Okay, on the
If I
subject
could
of
just
jerks.
throw in like my idea.
This was your session, yes.
Oh, yeah, please.
You should wrap it up.
No, you know what? I didn't know a thing about co-ops going into this, so I think this is
I
fascinating
still
and
don't.
totally in character for IndieWeb, honestly, so I think that'd be awesome. So if I can suggest like a first next goal, to answer your question about like what would we do with this theoretical, can we in some time frame create like a one-page document listing the mission and maybe 3 or 4 goals of this theoretical organization? That's and getting more mission goals.
Just
Add that to your.
add that to Loki. Just ask Loki. Loki. Look at for you.
Yeah, I advocate my support and the people that I bring behind me, you know, that, I would not like to have some crank create something. I would like in us, you know, that can relate and ask questions and help to guide human energy and make, because we are powerful because we are us, we are many us, right? And we need we, right? And I feel like maybe the energy, that's why we're speaking to each other right now. You know, so Jason's a suggestion, I support it. You know, I don't know what everybody else thinks, or something, something simple,
Perfect
you know?
sense. Yeah, and that's the call to action.
I just say, what is governance model? And if there's not a page, Loki will make the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So do I need to, will it automatically have a space or should I put a hyphen in there?
Space will work.
Okay, well, thank
Some
you,
people
everybody. That was a
say,
great-
Yeah.
we were there at the start.
Yeah.
Thank you, that was,
Us
that was,
500
thank you, everyone. That was
people.
great.
Thanks a lot for all your insight. That went, and thanks, Aaron, for rescuing it from like, I'm gonna talk about things. You're like, actually, let's, yeah. Cool.
All right, what's next?
I'll send you a mail right away. Yeah.
And this is called
Governance model.
introduction.
Oh, Microsoft isn't here. Oh, I'm in the right spot.
Oh, is this the Microsoft room? Okay, so Johannes, is that I have it here, JEN.
JERNST.
My
So I think you're
eyes.
scheduled to give your talk here now.
Then I was not as big.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay.
I wanted to go to your talk and I was confused because I thought it was here. And then Aaron was like,
Consensus
okay.
isn't in there.
Somehow, I got up
Yeah,
this morning
yeah.
at 4:30 to fly up here,
Uh,
so maybe
yes.
a little bit temporarily changed.